Welcome back to the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pastor Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And we have Johnny Sue on the ones and twos. We want to welcome you all back. We had a great week. We just went over 24,000 subscribers right here on YouTube.
Thank you, YouTube.
So thank you to all of you. We love you. You know who you are, all our patrons. Michael Cruz, he's there. We queued the duck for you. And we're going to just get rocking and rolling because you know it's going to be a crazy week because we only have a couple more days, fam, before they decide who's set and who's ready for these debates. Oh, well, let's just get right into it. Let's show the video. Cue the video. And we're going to go right to our girl who's coming home.
They had anointed you to be the next great queen of the Democratic Party establishment, and you threw that away.
Tulsi Gabbard, the Hawaii Democrat and DNC vice chair, disinvited from the Democratic debate,
has been at odds with her boss, DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, for months over the Democratic presidential debate schedule.
You were also quoted as saying, when I signed up to be vice chair of the DNC, no one told me I would be relinquishing my freedom of speech.
I am resigning from the DNC.
Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard sent shockwaves through the political world yesterday when she stepped down as vice chair of the Democratic National Committee.
I am truly honored to nominate Bernie Sanders for President of the United States.
I'm challenging the establishment, challenging the status quo.
Today, I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
You have faced some really harsh criticism from fellow Democrats.
This war with Iran would be far more devastating than anything that we ever saw in Iraq.
Why were you the lone voice out there going after the neocons?
She won a number of online polls. She became the top trending candidate on Google.
She has reached well over the 130,000 individual donor threshold.
She's been dismissed and otherized by a media that seems unable to grapple with a servicewoman who dares question the bipartisan war consensus.
Tulsi Gabbard, who has 23 polls above 2%, and the DNC looking at that list and saying, yeah, but only one of these qualifies.
There's nothing more powerful than when we, the people, rise up united by our love for this country and our love for each other to bring about the kind of change in leadership that we need to bring.
Wow, she's coming home. Just want to say some hello to some people on the Facebook. Mikey Yu, he's here. We can start the show when Mikey Yu is here. Steve Wolfbrandt, Julian, and Steve, someone who did our first live stream ever. Brenda Gutierrez was one of our first guests when we did our first live streams. Remember that back in the days? Brenda, we love you truly from the bottom of our hearts here at the Convo Couch. You inspire us. You really do. So Tulsi Gabbard is being cheated by the establishment, fam, and it shouldn't come as a surprise.
And let me say this. I think a lot of people, and I'm wearing my Bernie shirt today, and I told Pasta we're not allowed to wear candidate shirts, but he wore his Tulsi one once, so this is like payback. This is probably the last time you'll see me wearing a Bernie shirt on camera, like for the Convo Couch. But I want to point out that I think a lot of Berners forgot what happened in 2016 and forgot the significance of what Tulsi Gabbard did for Bernie Sanders, because a lot of them are pushing Elizabeth Warren right now. And it's really, really telling to me that you clearly don't understand what the definition of the word progressive is if you're going to be pushing Elizabeth Warren over Tulsi Gabbard. So we're going to go through and explain, both of us, why this is such a big deal and why you, as a Bernie supporter, should be talking about what they're doing to Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important when you go back to the old saying that you want to know who's really calling the shots, see who you can talk about.
Exactly, and see who the mainstream media and the establishment and Third Way are all supporting. If they're all supporting that candidate, you should not be supporting them.
And they also say, you want to see who the biggest threat to that leadership is or that control? See who they're trying to silence.
Exactly.
And we know who they're trying to silence right now, and it's Tulsi Gabbard. And I just want to go through this because this is a form of fascism. It really is. When you suppress a voice, when the state suppresses a voice, and all Google, YouTube, it's all owned by people who are close to the establishment, Democratic-friendly people who are very close to the Clintons, the Obamas, and whatnot, and they're the actual suppressing of the voice, which is a form of fascism on the left.
Right, and that's how the left does it. Censorship and more security.
Yeah, so I want to kind of just roll through a few things from the time some pictures and talk about it and just recognize the attacks and understand what's coming on and why they're trying to attack her. So Tulsi Gabbard announces her run for presidency, and it was in early January 2019, and all of a sudden, it started coming out of the woodwork. Here are the attacks. Starting with the first one, guess what, fam? When she was on the show, I made a joke. I said, let's talk about something you don't talk about often. Assad. But they started right in off the bat, the Washington Post, just trying to make this connection. Post. Tulsi Gabbard is an Assad apologist. Here she is. She shouldn't have met with Assad, fam.
Yeah, so Tulsi Gabbard meets with an opponent in order to avoid any kind of war. And we are just focused on the fact that she met with him, so she must be in his favor for whatever reason, right? Because we are all such experts on what's going on in Syria. Yeah. Just because we watch CNN and CNN tells us that Assad is a dictator, we assume to believe that. But regardless of what we think of Assad, same as regardless of what we think of Maduro, that's not the point. The point is she met with an adversary to speak out, to achieve peace, to avoid war, which is a good thing. But the gaslighting effect is we are all focused then on her being an Assad apologist just because she met with him.
Yeah.
And that is completely how the neoliberals frame your mind into being pro-war, pro-intervention, because it's a bad idea to meet with someone you may not agree with and talk it out.
Yeah. And this is a person who understands the price of war. She said she will not be stopped. She will not be silenced from trying to achieve peace. They also don't mention, fam, that she met with the opposition, and we asked her on the show, how is it the people of Syria on the ground? And she was able to give us a reason and an explanation for that. But that was just the start of it, because then NBC News comes out with the Russia's propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Here comes the neo-McCarthyite stuff. Here comes the Russian correlation, fam.
And that was completely debunked because the information that they got it from was a complete lie.
Yeah.
And people knew this, and they still kept spreading this. And not to mention the fact that whenever people ask, well, how is she related to Russia? They can't answer you. Well, how is she an Assad apologist? When Joe Rogan interviewed that woman, I forget her name.
Yeah, she was from the New York Times. I think.
She was a writer for the New York Times, and she called Tulsi an Assad toady. She couldn't even define what that meant. Yeah. She was like, like she couldn't even define it. She made herself look like an idiot, which she is. Yeah. And then she was unable to offer any sort of proof, any sort of even definition to what that meant.
Johnny, you got something to say? Because I don't know you remember that moment when they were trying to walk her through it. Like, well, what do you mean? She couldn't even explain herself. She was just told to think and say that, so she repeated what she was supposed to say. And that's our media, by the way.
And if you remember, fam, when we did the whole Modi thing, the whole Modi breakdown, you were saying some things and you didn't even realize that you heard that from somewhere, but you hadn't even done the research.
Yeah.
But you realized it, and you were like, oh, crap. This is how we are just taught to regurgitate things and not question them simply because the New York Times, which is just amazing and Pulitzer Prize winning journalism, we should just take it at face value.
You know what it was, too? That's the whole thing when it comes to Tulsi, because it's a special kind of attack, because it's when the attacks come from the small amount of Bernie people and those people. I remember it was Richard Wolff who was talking bad about, Modi. Mm-hmm. And that made me automatically think, well, whoa, she's got a problem here. But look at the next one. They also tried to do this. This is something you'll see the social justice warriors or the establishment people, the Hindu nationalists.
Oh, God.
You know what I'm saying? They always say the Hindu nationalists, the genocidal Assad, you know what I'm saying? The U.S. far right. That was an opinion piece over here. But they also get this whole thing, whoa, she's a Hindu fascist. Okay, she's a Hindu sympathizer. She's a Modi sympathizer. And then all of a sudden we see right here, Tulsi Gabbard, the first Hindu in U.S. Congress, on Modi, on Hinduism, and linking Islam to terror, which is supposed to be a positive kind of like article of sorts, because they try to kind of explain it. But once again, that part of the left used this to attack. Oh, she's a Modi apologist. She's taking Modi money from the BJP, which is the Modi's party, and she can't be trusted.
Which I want to challenge somebody to actually bring me receipts where she is literally taking money from Modi, from people from directly vast amounts of money, or is she receiving individual donations from Indian people living in the United States who happen to support Modi? It is not her fault that she is the first Hindu in Congress and they like her.
Yeah.
And it's not her fault what's going on in India with Modi. That has nothing to do with her. She's not running for president of India. She's running for president of the United States. And unless you all can provide actual documentation that she is actually directly tied to the BJP, then you guys are just spreading misinformation. And I'm really sick of hearing the same regurgitated 3 articles. One's a Jacobin article, one's a One Intercept article where you have to look at the writer, and you see that they're tied to Pakistan, or you see that they've had a bias for Tulsi. And I know this because a lot of these pieces are opinion pieces against her. They're not even any kind of valid pieces. And there's one more piece, I think it's a Medium article or something. Tulsi Gabbard is not our friend. There's those 3 that people keep regurgitating. And I know that it's those 3 because I've been debunking them since the freaking beginning. And I'm sick and tired of debunking the same thing and telling you guys that there's no proof that she has any ties at all. Regardless, once again, of your opinion of what it is about Modi. Because that situation is complex on its own, okay? We can say that what's happening is absolutely horrible, but what does that have to do with Tulsi Gabbard? And if we want to play identity politics, why doesn't it apply that she is a woman of color and that she's the first Hindu? What they're doing to her is Hinduphobic. It is absolutely Hinduphobic, but it's okay because guess what? She's anti-establishment, anti-war, and so it's okay to smear her. And that's completely fair. And if you don't see that by now, you're still being duped by the mainstream media smears.
I got to clear my glasses because I can't even see what's going on over here and stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Fam, boom! I'm sick of, you know what else, fam? She did meet with the opposition because it's stupid. Because, it's like somebody put up on one of their posts, why do we like Tulsi Gabbard again? I'm like, because she's anti-war AF. You know what I'm saying? She's regime. I can't wait for her to come back, and she's back today, and I would love to see her response on Hong Kong. I'm just eager. I'm pins and needles waiting to hear what she has to say about that.
We'll see.
We'll see and stuff like that. Let's not also forget, fam, that in these debates, nobody got the questions like Tulsi. Nobody got attacked and stuff. She got attacked for 9/11 comments when she was asked about equal pay in the Democratic Party. She was also given this question about, would you support Hezbollah if you were to redo the deal in Iran? In other words, they got really geopolitical. Yeah. They went down and they asked a question that would ask nobody, and it was a question intended to put her in the corner. No matter how she answered, if she said yes, she was for support of Hamas or Hezbollah or any group, just for sitting down at the table trying to achieve peace when it came to that deal, then she was going to be looked upon as, once and again, an apologist for terror groups. So they tried to even set her up in that way, but she was able to dance around the question properly. This woman is very, very smart. People don't get... She's definitely playing chess. And like you said, fam, when it comes to these situations, she's very analytical. She's not emotional.
No, not at all. And I think that's what people mistake for as a lack of care, because she is very logical thinker. She's not a feeler. She's a thinker. That obviously doesn't mean she doesn't have feelings. It just means she thinks about what she says before, and she's very stoic. So
yeah, and she also understands that, and people have to understand when it comes to a lot of these resolutions or these bills, or just they play both sides. In other words, a lot of people say, well, Tulsi voted for a lot of defense budgets. So did Bernie Sanders, because you know why? Inside those defense budgets, they gave raises to the soldiers to get them more money, better benefits. They tried to get more money swung their way. Now, I've said this before, we have to separate that when it comes to our bills and understand fiscally when we're spending money on defense contractors and the majority of money is going there, and limit the money we can spend there. But for the soldiers, it shouldn't be off.
And the person that voted for Trump's military budgets, by the way, has been Elizabeth Warren, who voted for the actual increase in military funding to that. And if you look at the bill, you'll be able to find that. You guys have to look at these bills separately.
Yeah, and the last time she had a vote, Tulsi Gabbard got some language in that bill, and she voted present, meaning that she wasn't for or against it, because she was for some aspects of it, and she's glad she got language in there, but she didn't want to necessarily say yes to the outrageous amount of dollars that we are spending on our defense budget, which is well over $800 billion if you factor in everything. Yeah. But fam, one of the biggest attacks came, and you can't convince me of nothing. Last night, Johnny, when you went to bed, they started talking on our show about the Voorhees, Zach Voorhees, and the Veritas Project, and they had all these people on, because now even RT is kind of catching up and doing a story on it, and it was great. I was screaming to you because there's a lot of the people we talked about last week. Tulsi Gabbard sues Google for suspending an ad account, claims Google is trying to silence her, and a guy by the name of Zach Voorhees, who just did a data dump from Google, the Veritas Projects, he wrote an open letter to Tulsi Gabbard. We did it in one of our shows, pretty much explaining how they did it. This right here is what I'm talking about. And on this show on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Tim Canova and Ron Placone will be joining us to talk more about these matters, about what's going on and how Google is censoring us. Mm-hmm. This was one of the most crucial times, fam. She just come out of that first debate when she slayed Tim Ryan. She was the most searched candidate on Google, and it was a crucial time for her to get out there, open up that credit card, start buying advertising, and get that money in there, get her polling numbers up and everything. But you know what Google did? They shut her down for 6 hours, and they still have not given an answer to her or her campaign on why they did it to this day.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very obvious what Google is doing to her. It's very obvious that Google is owned by people who have interests in this sort of centrist establishment agenda. And that is not, that's not something that is hidden. That's obviously a fact. So what I hope that she is successful, but I mean, she's fighting the powers that be, just like Bernie is. And it's going to be very difficult. It's very difficult to win in a system where the people in power make up all the rules. So how do we beat it? Well, we have to stop pretending that it's fair, first of all. And then we have to ally ourselves for the truth, not just simply give in to the idea that, well, we might as well just, accept whatever because that's the way it is. And it's never going to change. No. You know why? Because we don't have time. We don't have time to be like that. And one thing I do want to point out, Pasta, is right after Tulsi Gabbard literally destroyed Kamala Harris, destroyed her, obliterated her. Yeah, you put that on your Twitter. To the point where Kamala's numbers have dwindled, and I don't buy any of these polls, but I 100% certainly know that Kamala took a hit for that. Yeah. A lot of people who didn't know her record went and researched it and found it. Yeah. So much so that the California Democratic Party removed the arrest records during her term as a prosecutor. They started washing them, They started covering them up. That is a fact. You can look that up. Yeah. And on top of that, all of this, Tulsi was still research. And guess, somehow she doesn't make the debate cutoff. She doesn't make it in 5 polls. I mean, in the latest Monmouth poll, which I'm gonna be talking about, she doesn't even make the cut at all. So how is it a coincidence? Because I don't believe in coincidences. How is it a coincidence that all of a sudden Tulsi doesn't make any of these polls when she went after the DNC's chosen one? Kamala was the DNC's chosen one. Yeah. She was the one that went to those secret meetings in the Hamptons. She was the one that was appointed by the same people that appointed Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. She's the one they were relying on when they saw that Biden wasn't going to do it. So how is it just a random thing? Coincidence. That just she happens not to qualify. They're trying to quell her. They're trying to quell her rise. And it's very obvious and it's very maddening, which is why I sound the way I sound, because I'm just sick and tired of people regurgitating the same BS and helping the establishment achieve their freaking goal, which is to suppress this people's movement that is obviously rising. Yeah, well, let me just point out, too, that if you want to go see some of that stuff from Kamala Harris, too, we have a couple videos. Fam made some great videos. You can look up a lot of these people. George Gage, we did a story on that one day because they went to the appellate court right here in Pasadena in our backyard. So I got a little intrigued with that case. But that's almost a guy who was 80-something years old. There was no hard evidence. And he's pretty much hanging in jail by a technicality. And that's the whole thing is that, they told, pretty much the Kamala's staff, the lawyer that showed up and said, like, your job is not to just score as many political points by getting as many convictions as you can. Your job is to uphold justice. And everything we're looking at here, it does not look good. Okay, you withheld evidence, and now you're going to hang him on a technicality because he was a poor man who can only use a jail lawyer. George Gage, look him up. We did a show on it. Fam did a show. All these things. And when Tulsi went after her, yes, now all of a sudden, I had some libertarian people at the table the other day, fam, and I told them, well, I got a horse in the race, and he stopped and he looked, and he's like, who? And I said, Tulsi Gabbard. He was like, oh, yeah, he shook my hand. Now, this is a hardcore libertarian guy, loves Ron Paul. We discussed, he's a little scared he's in the medicine business. He's a little scared about universal health care. But when it comes to certain things, like civil liberties, foreign policy, auditing the Fed, and I have a little video coming up. These are things that the progressives, good progressives, will align with libertarians. And that's where the connection is. I've been saying all along,
F these neoliberal centrists.
You're not going to get their votes.
You're not going to get them.
You're not going to get them.
And, there was a unity fund, and we got it over here. Our good friend James the Goose, or Jimmy Rogowski, you love him, fam. Jimmy, when he starts getting going, he's been doing all this work on this Democratic unity fund, which was a unity fund, and they sent out the letter from Barack Obama coming to help out, all the Democratic candidates reach out, use their database, get some funds. But would you be surprised, fam, if I told you that Tulsi and Bernie were left out of this here?
Really? Oh, man. I can't believe it, fam.
We've seen a big push from them. 7 out of the 8 people that are in this unity fund, he's got the Bs. I think it's Booker, Buttigieg, Beto, and Biden. They've all qualified.
The Bs.
And the ladies are Warren. Who else? Warren, Klobuchar.
You mean
Kamala
Klobuchar.
Harris, Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, and Gillibrand. And Gillibrand's the only one who hasn't qualified. And James, Jimmy Ruggs, has been seeing a big push to try to help her out and get there. And you can see on the next one that Johnny has over here, look who's made it right here, the debates. Right there. You can see do I have it up somewhere? I think I do. I might have questioned, but there it is.
Johnny has it, yeah.
He has it up, and you can see, she has the individual donations. So does this donkey Tom Steyer, who only got there because he was the impeach Trump movement. He worked with all them, built a database that way, found out who all the impeach Trump people were, and kind of swung all those donations around to get him eligible that way.
Yeah, and by the way, the fact that he made it and Tulsi didn't.
Well, he didn't make the polls yet.
Oh, he didn't.
Tom Steyer did not. Andrew Yang, Julian Castro just got a push.
He has one more, though, left, right?
He needs to get one more. If he gets the one poll, if Tom Steyer gets in this debate and Tulsi Gabbard doesn't.
I think we should riot.
Okay. But we have to ask the big question, fam, here. We're towards the end of the segment, and I know I've been carrying on, but why? What's the biggest reason the establishment and the mainstream media is against Tulsi Gabbard? Take a guess.
I mean, it's just, she's literally a threat to everything they stand for. With Bernie would be an even bigger threat.
Would you argue that aside from Bernie, she is the most anti-war candidate on that stage? Period. And that is the main reason why. People have to accept the fact that Barack Obama was terrible at foreign policy. He was awful. There were so many mistakes across the board. He listened to Hillary Clinton too much in his first.
He deported a lot of people, by the way.
Okay, he was Republican light, if not Republican. I understand that he pulled a lot of troops home from Iraq, but he just replaced them with drones and spread out the wars. Spread these wars out. Now, this article in TruthDig says really simply, we're listening to the wrong voices on Syria. Go to TruthDig. If you haven't read this really yet, please do so. I want to read the first paragraph, and then we're going to skip down a little bit. But it says here, once upon a time, Hawaiian Representative Tulsi Gabbard traveled to Syria and met with the strong-armed President Bashar al-Assad. She considered her willingness to engage all sides of the country's bloody civil war to be an important step towards peace. For this bold action, she was widely pilloried at the time and considered to be an authoritarian apologist or outright traitor. The claim was repeated again recently by the ever-so mainstream California Senator Kamala Harris, a fellow Democratic presidential hopeful. The attacks on Gabbard's Syria record have been quite regular among Washington insiders who consider the Congresswoman full. But was she? More than 2 years later, given the events in Syria, one must conclude that she certainly was not. Indeed, Gabbard was right all along. And if you kind of just go down below to where it says, yet, when it talks about Max Blumenthal all the way down, stating she was right the whole time, because she's had these bills, fam, that said, okay, we have to make sure that we have bills that we cannot fund terrorism whatsoever, okay? Because it says right here, yet as journalist Max Blumenthal made it clear in 2 illuminating chapters of his latest book, The Management of Savagery, he titled it after your Twitter feed. The U.S. and its European and Arab partners sent most of the brutal civil war backing the same very Islamists that most threatened America. As such, the Western Gulf Alliance enabled, even caused, the Talibanization of the huge swaths of Syria, especially in the oil-rich East. And it says right here, it worked like this. This is the last paragraph I'm going to read because you got to get into this article. It's awesome. The CIA set up shop across the border in Turkey, and Barack Obama authorized $500 million in military aid. Wow. $500 million in military aid, including anti-armor TOW missiles, which ended up in the hands of the Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, ISIS. All these groups, they're Islamist groups. And at the peak of the mission, $1 in every $15 the CIA spent went to Syria, the assistant missions. The blowback, so to speak, was the resurrection of Al-Qaeda, the empowerment of the Islamic State, and the turning of much of Syria into a jihad stronghold. The people that we went after, that we used an excuse to get rid of, are now armed to the T and thriving well because what Barack Obama did, along with the CIA.
I mean, it's just the same playbook over and over again.
And the only one to speak against this, fam,
is someone that's actually put her life on the line.
Yeah.
And who is still doing that till this very moment, and who's getting smeared while she's doing that.
Yeah. I have this one last video to play. It's by Ron Paul. It's a 2-minute video. And I just want to say, this is the part we're talking about. You know, we saw on The View the way the people, where Meghan McCain even have to say that the Democrats are so stupid that they get mad that they have a
when
candidate.
you make Meghan McCain look good,
yeah.
you must be just failing at your job.
And if the Democrats continue to live in their own bubble, if they don't change right now, if they do this to Tulsi Gabbard, if they don't adjust and let her in these debates, they are just going to crucify themselves.
And they're going to do that to Bernie.
Yeah.
If you're not speaking out against this, you're not a real progressive, because progressives care about morality. It doesn't matter if it doesn't benefit our candidate or not.
Yeah.
Okay, what's wrong is wrong, and what they're doing to her is wrong. And guess what? They're going to turn around and do it to him as well.
Yeah, and you need to win this election. You're going to need independent appeal. You're going to need to get those libertarians who are not going to be on board with Donald Trump. Because even like when Ron Paul speaks, and we're going to see him there, Donald Trump's talked a good talk, but he hasn't pulled the troops out of anywhere.
Right.
I salute Donald for not having any new wars, but the budget's still high, and you're still bombing
and the tariffs are sinking our economy.
Tulsi gets all those libertarians and independents, and she's very, very, very powerful with them. Show the video.
In May, Representative Tulsi Gabbard was by far the very best candidate, you said, in the presidential field. You still feel that way?
Yes, and the big reason is obviously for the foreign policy, because she talks about non-intervention. She has the military experience. I was one of the few candidates when I ran. I had military experience when the others did not, and yet they were always the experts. And she's good on her feet, and she knows the issue. And of course, a good progressive Democrat will agree a lot with a libertarian, on civil liberties and on foreign policy. We have to work at it to get along with people who want more economic interventionism. But I found that not too difficult, because I worked a lot with Dennis Kucinich and other progressives. And she's somebody that I root for, because she's sending out a message there. But I think she will face a tough haul. Even if she may be maneuvering to be vice president, I think the deep state, the people who don't want to be, it pointed out, just think, how much agreement the Republicans are with the Democrats. The Democrats nor the Republicans are saying, we really need to do something about the Federal Reserve. And neither side really cares about the deficit. And I don't think either side, even though Trump mentions it, we need to bring our troops home. And Tulsi mentions those things. And I think she's a very valuable candidate.
So there it is, fam. The deep state's after her. The powers that may be, the unelected officials that have these jobs within these intelligence communities, who are in line with the military-industrial complex, who have our media bought off, this control. It's all about control. It's all about money. It's all about finances. And that's who doesn't want Tulsi Gabbard to win. And I'm really surprised that a lot of progressives, not all the progressives, just don't see it, fam.
Yeah, and it's because they're blind. They're blinded by a lot of what, this idea that we can only support one person. I fully support Bernie Sanders, but at the same time, we need allies. And what they're going to do to him, which I will explain later on in the segment, is very dangerous without having an actual ally, and Warren is not an ally. Yeah. And I'll tell you why.
Will you have this political poll?
Yes.
You want to talk about the political poll?
The Monmouth poll, which I think is BS, and it shows it completely ignores Tulsi, number one. Bernie is probably higher. Biden is probably nowhere near the top, and Elizabeth Warren is probably lower than Bernie. but still higher than others. How? Because if we actually take into account what the public actually wants in Bernie's rallies and the popularity, you see him go way past everybody else, but you'd also see Warren higher than Biden, and then other candidates. And then Tulsi, I believe, would be at least at 5% or more. And let's look at the margin of error. You have to look at the sample size when you look at a poll. I get a better sample size when I put a poll on Twitter than these people got. 298 people were sampled. Are you serious? I'm going to do a poll after this show, and I guarantee you my poll will be better and have a more accurate sample size. Again, basic statistics. This allows us to get a margin of error that is plus or minus 7%. That is too big of a margin of error. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. 5.7. That's still ridiculous.
It's still ridiculous.
That's still ridiculous. People say, oh, that's not bad. No, that's ridiculous for a poll. There should be less than a percentage of margin of error, period, when it comes to this. Yeah. And how does 300 people, less than 300 people, get to decide whether a major candidate gets to go in a race or not and stuff? And they're not being transparent about these polls. You know, I mean, the election integrity specialist, Brent, called me. We had a show about him. He does all the work about open source and closed source. And he was saying, Pasta, these polls things are even worse because they have zero transparency. Yep. They can call who they want. They can do what they want. They're obviously in line with the establishment. And, you know, going back to that libertarian person, it's like that person said, he goes, not for nothing, Tulsi won't be allowed in any debates anymore after what she did to Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Backing up your tweet, backing about what we talked about before. He said it. He goes, there's no way. So. No.
And let's just look at who she's been endorsed by. And this is by no means the entire list. But
this is a great list, though.
Normal.
You know who Normal is?
Yes.
National Organization for Reform Marijuana Laws.
Yes.
Boom, Johnny. Give me some love over there. Oliver Stone. We talk about Oliver Stone.
Matt Taibbi.
Awesome.
Senator Ron Paul.
Awesome.
Senator Mike Gravel, who also endorsed Bernie. Yes. Joe Rogan.
Awesome.
Sean Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
John Lennon's son. Esperanza Spalding. 200 plus environmental organizations. Jack Dorsey, who is I think, owner of Twitter? CEO.
Yeah.
And Alex Ohanian on Reddit. Pasta. I'm adding Pasta, Nico House, Jimmy Dore, and other indie media who have endorsed Tulsi Gabbard. People that I consider true progressives that are especially the media. As media, you kind of have an ability you have to see the chess pieces in their place and kind of have to predict things before they happen. This is why I tend to trust these people 10,000% more than the pundits or these supposed experts like Nate Silver. I was going to call him Nate's Liver because that's the parody account. But yeah, I 100% choose these people over those pundits that get paid millions to lie to you. So
before we go to that, let's do some shout outs.
Let's do some shout outs, of course, before we go to the next
Facebook
topic.
over here because the Facebook is hot. Like the YouTube's hot. We got 40 people on the Facebook.
Wow, hi, Facebook.
Paul, it's C-Fam that you did that little video on Facebook, and your Facebook people wake up. They were like, hello, Fee's there, Savagery, Paul Edward Graham, Rocky B, Rocky Bellinger, we love you, Steve Wilbrandt is still hanging on in, Ungi, Sarah Joyce, Michelle, Janine True Jenkins, Manuel Arizala. Did I say it? Or Arizala. See, you gotta help me out with those names there.
You should know Spanish by now.
I know. And Keith Ward, Mom, I hope you're listening. Also from the YouTubes, PDD, The Hoos, Fred Edward, The Kitty 3, George Kraft, Pork Chop. I love that name.
I love that name.
That's the
I don't
DS,
eat pork, but
Donnie Newman, Cyrus, how you doing? Georgia Peach. Georgia Peach being mean. Spark,
okay.
Spark, Mike, Robert Hickey, Proof Anthrax, Ghost Rider DOF. We love you all, and of course, don't drink the booze. You know my boy Michael Cruz. He's always there. We love you, Michael Cruz. We got to order your shirt and get it sent out to you for being such an awesome Patreon to us. Before we get to the Warren stuff, John, you got anything to add, or should we just jump right into the Warren stuff? John's the one who said Elizabeth is putting the war back in Warren.
Yeah, Johnny. So how my Warren prediction is coming true. If you guys recall, several shows ago, I said that Elizabeth Warren is Bernie's biggest threat, to a lot of criticism, to people saying I was being divisive, that we don't need to do that we need to work with Warren and wait, and Well, the fact of the matter is This is actually very true. And some burners have done this to themselves, to us, because Warren is actually Bernie's biggest threat. And this is happening right now. We saw the Monmouth poll, which saw her surging along with Bernie. Now, I don't think she is as high as a lot of these polls are indicating at all, but I do think she has surged. Elizabeth Warren, the problem with her is that her establishment side is showing. And I believe the establishment is using her to woo progressives into thinking that she's as good as it gets in case we don't get Bernie, and the one who will be actually nominated. So this is a problem because, and I'm going to show my tweet because my tweet pretty much explains it. I did say Warren is Sanders' biggest threat, and she will continue to be. Different establishment candidates will get delegates. They'll line up behind her and make her the more plausible candidate so that all of you can settle, and then she'll lose to Trump. Did you have that tweet up? Okay, great. And obviously there's the political article there that you guys should read, kind of like putting them together. And they're not doing this by mistake. They're doing this so so the progressives think, oh, it's okay, it's good, Bernie's rising, it's okay.
It's a chess game.
No.
Yeah. They're trying to kind of like literally kind of seep her in there on the outside.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to this, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of money now is going her way that wasn't going the way in the beginning. And they're starting to kind of silently push her in there. And there are some people out there, I just want to mention them. Angie Aker, who ain't being fooled. She talks about it a lot. Like, pay attention to Warren. Susan Sarandon, who said the other day, like about a week ago. Susan, she said, well, at least Bernie wasn't a Democrat, wasn't a Republican before. Now, let's think about that. Susan Sarandon was at Standing Rock. Tulsi Gabbard was at Standing Rock. Was the Native American woman Elizabeth Warren at Standing Rock?
No.
Did Elizabeth Warren stand up for Tulsi Gabbard, for Bernie Sanders the way Tulsi Gabbard did?
No, and she didn't stand up for Native Americans at all either during the Dakota Access Pipeline at all. She didn't even do anything for it. She said there was two sides to this issue, which there clearly was not.
Yeah.
It was not a
the corporations and the people.
Two sides issue. I'm going to continue reading this tweet because then my next thing is, and then they will make all the rigged rumors seem like a Bernie bro thing because polls were saying that Elizabeth Warren was ahead anyway because you should unite to defeat Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So then progressives will say, some progressives, with quotes, will say she's not bad. Let's just dismiss the rigging and accept it. And then when she loses to Donald Trump, any idea that people want anything close to democratic socialism because they consider Elizabeth Warren left, which she's not, will die. They'll blame Sanders, but we will know that that's not the case, and she'll have lost because centrism is still not a winning strategy against a populist movement, and our planet and people will experience recession and decline. This is what will happen if we don't literally take a stand and say no. We're not going to accept the lesser of evils situation. We're not going to continue to do this. And what Elizabeth Warren is doing now, and Nico had a great video today. I'm going to expand on it in another video, but he had a great video today talking about how Elizabeth Warren is backing off Medicare for all, and she 100% is. And you guys can't say Tulsi is backing off of Medicare for all because those two responses were entirely different. She literally said the platitude salad, and you guys should check out Nico's video. But Elizabeth Warren is also quietly telling Democratic insiders that she's gonna toe the line, that don't worry about it, that she's there, that she's not as much of a threat to them. She's literally kind of positioning herself because she knows that she's going to end up doing whatever they need to do, which is why they are supporting her, which is why now they, like Pasta said, they've started to shift towards her. This is why Neera Tanden constantly praises her. This is why Third Way is completely after her. This is why you don't really see Elizabeth Warren smears, why she got the biggest time slots during the debates, why she never gets asked a foreign policy question
ever.
All. Neither does Kamala Harris, but I will bet you $1 million that she doesn't get asked any of those questions that Tulsi Gabbard got asked.
And there's something we have to really consider and think about, ladies and gentlemen. It's scary up there. Those Democrats, most of those Democrats, once again, you know me, I've been pushing Bernie to get better on foreign policy, but he does have a clue. He understands. If you ever watch Bernie's video of him talking about the regime change, the CIA's first regime change on the Congress floor, and how the CIA was involved, it's masterfully. It's awesome. It was years ago. Look it up, but it's great. He explains in detail what happened and how they went in there and they implemented the CIA as their side of what's going on and caused the coup to overturn Mossadegh. But Tulsi Gabbard, she knows a lot. She understands a lot. These Democratic candidates don't know
they have
anything.
Zero clue. Zero.
And that's why half the country didn't vote last time. Hillary Clinton was awful at it. And a lot of people say the whole time, like, what? I was saying the whole time, what the hell is Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton doing? And then I even said, what the hell is Barack Obama and John Kerry doing? Like, pushing the Syrian war, the conflict. These people know nothing. Warren is terrible. And here's the thing. She's willing to play ball, and I think people have catch that. She's willing to flip-flop back and forth. She's just playing games with the people, trying to make like she's progressive, but she's really to play ball with the establishment and do what they want. She cannot be trusted as far as I'm concerned. And I think I'm very close to saying that I will not vote for her if it's her and Trump. I don't think she has a chance anyways. But
yeah, there's a lot of people that are actually going to be angry enough to vote against her. Yeah. And I fear that. And we can't afford that. We can't afford to lose to Donald Trump. It's not, and not just to Donald Trump, but to the same BS system that keeps perpetuating and electing people like Obama or anybody like that. That's going to lead to another fascist like person like Donald Trump. And it's fine. Like we can call it whatever it is, but the fact of the matter is either of those positions is not going to solve our problems. We're on the brink of recession. We don't have time to wait till later to save the planet. You guys saw what the DNC was trying to do to these kids. Shut down the talk about climate change, to literally not listen to these kids who know that when they grow up, they're not really they're going to be like unable to live their life as like we have normal, because the planet is in danger, and this isn't a joke.
Yeah.
And we cannot solve this with incrementalism. We cannot solve this with middle ground. We cannot solve this with the centrism.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to kind of piggyback on what you said about those kids who are asking for a climate debate, but this is the problem too, though. They don't connect the dots. You have to connect the dots. A lot of foreign policy. Our domestic policy is intertwined with our foreign policy. You can't get away from it. So you better learn more about it, because we did a show right here where we were talking about Lula da Silva and Glenn Greenwald. Let's not forget that the DOJ pushed to put Lula in prison. So why? So he couldn't run. And if he couldn't run, that means Bolsonaro wins. And now everything is just the corporations. Everything's for business in the Amazon. So when you're talking about, hey, listen, the Amazon's on fire, the pink dolphins could die, you got to connect the dots to what we're talking about foreign policy-wise. Because they jailed a man who was truly progressive, who would have been taking serious action for climate change, especially in the Amazon.
He would have been the Bernie Sanders of Brazil, and he's behind jail.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the poverty rate, how it just dropped under Lula da Silva when he was the president, it was amazing. Okay, and in that video, you should go back and watch it, because Glenn Greenwald, and I'm going to try to reach out to him. If we listened to him back then, Lula would have been the president, and these things wouldn't have been going on. Because, fam, we have a lot of hits on that video that we put out about the Bolsonaro leaked documents, that this stuff might be going on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Did you want to play it or no?
Well, no. We're talking about the last video, the last live stream we did. He clipped up the video, and it's getting a lot of hits. But you guys got to realize, they put Lula in prison. America was behind it. So you got to connect the dots, and there's many people out there saying, free Lula, free Lula, free Lula, because he's the one who can get control of the Amazon over there. He's the one we need. Think about Bernie Sanders in that region. He's the one. So you got to put the dots together, ladies and gentlemen.
Everything's connected. That's the whole point. Like, everything's connected. You can't just say, well, I'm going to accept bombing people abroad because it's not us, and put someone like Elizabeth Warren, who isn't really going to change the system at all. And it's going to, again, she would lose to Donald Trump anyway. And then, of course, that comes back to, well, leftist ideas aren't working. So look what Bernie did, blah. And no. And either way, we lose. Either way, on either end. And we can't afford it. So to all the people that have been spending so much time establishment pushing Elizabeth Warren as your second candidate, you're literally doing what the establishment wants you to do. You're literally like playing their little game, falling in line right to where they need you to. So when the time comes for them to rig this election, because they will try, and that's it. You're just gonna have to accept it, because if you don't, guess what? You love Trump. You hate people of color. You're the worst thing in the world, right? We need to stop falling for those manipulations. They're just wrong. They're not. That's not reality here.
Yeah.
We need a people's movement. We need to rise up. This is the last chance we have.
Yeah.
And that's it. Bottom line, we cannot afford to lose this election. It's not just about beating Donald Trump, and it's not just about having making Donald Trump making you miss warmongers like George W. Bush.
Yeah, whoever said that shit's bullshit.
It's not about that. You stop like putting these warmongers on a pedestal just because they're not Donald Trump. If we look at policy-wise, George Bush was a far worse president. And we need to stop this idea that this is just about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is vile with some of the things he says, okay? But that's not how you win an election. You win an election by courting independent votes, libertarian votes, yes, Republican votes that may not agree with you.
Yeah.
You do that. A lot of these centrist people that are voting for Warren voted for Hillary in the past. They hate Bernie Sanders. They say he's a misogynist, a sexist, a racist, whatever they say. You're not going to get their vote. And I believe, and I agree with you 100%. Bernie's foreign policy advisor is not good. I know Bernie Sanders. He has been fighting since the 80s, since before I was born.
Yeah.
Okay, and his foreign policy is leftist. He's really much like Tulsi in foreign policy, but he's being advised to pull it back because we're trying to get those centrist votes. And I get that whole thing. But to me, that is the wrong strategy, because in the general election, that is going to hurt him if he even gets there. And that's why he would need someone like Tulsi to be there, because she will get those votes.
Yeah. Well, somebody put it in the chat that Trump did what the progressives needed to be done, and that was to split the party in two. And I think it's time for us to split our party in two, if we got to say it's our party, because I don't even consider myself a Democrat anymore.
No, I'm a registered Democrat, but I have no loyalty
to vote,
to them.
Just to vote for our people, because independent most of our lives. But we got to get out of here. Does Johnny Sue have anything else left? No? We want to thank everybody for joining in.
Thank you guys for watching.
We have all this stuff that's going on. It was a very fun show today. We had 275 people watching, almost 280 people watching on our CONVO Couch YouTube. We had over 40 people. We have like 42 people watching on our Facebook. We had some Twitch people out there. Johnny sent a comment to the people on Twitch.
Thank you
Twitter.
guys on Twitch.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you to all our Patreons. Keep supporting us if you can. Anything helps. We're going to be putting in for our monetization. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get our super chat. But we got to see, because, fam, they're silencing our voice.
They are.
They don't like us raging against the machine. And we want to thank all our civilian journalists out there who give us our help, who send us that information. If you sent us an email, please give us some time. We've set up a schedule to where we can respond back to you. I know there's a couple people who sent over some stuff. We want to hear everything you got to say. We look at ourselves, at least, I look at myself too as a civilian journalist or citizen journalist, whatever you want to call us. But it's up to us, because it's for the people to decide what gets looked upon, not the mainstream media. They shouldn't be able to push their narratives. So shows like this help get the word out. So thank you very much.
Yes, and shows like this are in danger as well, which is why we're also on Rockfin.
That's it. That's true. We're on Rockfin. Check us out. For Pasta Jardula
and Fiorella Isabel,
Johnny Sue on the ones and twos.
Peace. CONVO out.
We love you all. Thank you very much, everybody.